Hello everyone! Nikki finally has her very own house, and this is something that I have been looking forward to for a very long time. I was so excited to open the game again and start building and decorating, but I soon ran into a little hurdle. I didn't have a clue what I was doing. So now I've taken the time and I've figured things out a little bit, so I'm going to share with you some things I knew earlier, go through a little bit of a guide, so if you're scratching your head as well, hopefully after this video you'll feel a little bit more knowledgeable. Don't forget to like and also subscribe for more, but let's get into this. So firstly, before you can actually unlock the ability to decorate, you must unlock the construction ability. This is done on your home island and you must have done the quest to arrive here. Once you've crafted the outfit, you'll then be able to assign the ability outfit to your wheel as you do with the other abilities. The home abilities do vary greatly from the standard ability outfits that we've seen in the past, and this is because they can be upgraded, and when you do upgrade them, they unlock new features. I'm not going to go too much into this video about kind of upgrading and all the home abilities and things, but essentially you need the home insight to upgrade, and it's worth noting the insight is capped at 100 per day, so upgrading your abilities will be slow. And also Astrolite, which is the new home currency, and I have a whole separate video explaining that if you're a bit confused about that too. When you upgrade your abilities, you will unlock new features, as I say, and for decorating, these are actually quite interesting as they give you access to new decorating tools such as free rotate and free resize. I'm trying not to give you too many kind of opinions in this video as I want it to be kind of a guide, and I kind of might do a whole review on the housing system, but I wish they hadn't done this. I don't want tools being locked behind things, and especially when they're time gated, so it's a little bit of a shame that they did that. There is a little bit of a workaround to some of this, which I'll show you later, but it's worth knowing about these upgrades in case you see someone doing something really cool or they have different items to you. This could be why they might be at that higher level. So now you actually have your ability outfit, you now need to think about where you can actually build, as you can't just build willy-nilly on the home island. If you have tried already to use your ability outfit, you may have already noticed that you can only actually enter the build mode within an area that you've unlocked. It will not allow you to decorate near the dock area where you arrive. As you progress, you can unlock further map expansions using astrolites, but these are at a very high level. So for now, you're kind of limited to the default area where your house is. So this is what your build mode looks like. I know this is probably pretty self-explanatory to a lot of you, but I went into this and I was still a little bit confused as to what everything meant. So I'm going to run through it. So first of all, you have your load at the top. This is the big number that you can see, and it's out of 350,000, if my maths is correct. I hope that's right. But you can click on this, and essentially what this is it's an item limit. So you cannot place items over that max amount, and the left hand number is what you currently have placed. I wouldn't worry about this too much in the beginning. I think there's quite a healthy amount there, and also you can expand on this later as well when you progress, so that's good. It's kind of worthwhile kind of noting it, just keeping an eye on it, just in case you do go a little bit overboard, but for the minute I wouldn't worry too much about it. I wouldn't panic. And then the next thing we have is why. This is where you will save your island schemes, and you'll be able to place. At the present, there's only a max of 10, so just bear that in mind when you're doing them. There's also a combination as well, so you can have some different things there. There is the import scheme code, so this is where if a friend or you've seen something online and they've done something cool, you can put the code in here and then apply it. You must be on the same server to be able to import scheme codes from someone else. So remember that. Unfortunately, we won't be able to get the North Americans if you're in Europe, which kind of sucks. But hey, it is what it is. And then the next one is N. And this just gives you kind of two options here. So the first option is to clear all. If you click that button, it will give you a warning, but essentially what it is doing is it wants to kind of delete every single thing that is placed down. So this will pick everything up, and then you'll be able to kind of decorate with the items in your inventory. Wouldn't recommend doing this personally. I think the house is quite nice. I think it's going to be quite hard to kind of replicate something as nice as this. Obviously it's going to be possible, but I mean early on when you don't have a lot of furniture and you're kind of just replaying with the limited amount you have here. So until you unlock like all of the building stuff, all the exterior house stuff, I would maybe hold fire on that. The other option here is recover from stuck. So there is a few bugs here. I've particularly encountered the one where I get stuck underneath the rocks, which isn't ideal. So if you do encounter that, you can come to this button and press recover from stuck, which is quite good. And then we have F10. This is probably the most important menu. If you are a decorator, this is where you need to get to know things. And at first, the settings when you first go into decoration mode are not ideal. They are not optimized. They're clearly like the worst settings someone could think of, in my opinion. Anyway, they were really hard. I was like, why is this not rotating to align next to the other thing? And then this is why. So you have a setting for furniture, so you can do things such as allow floating. I'm probably actually going to turn that off because we don't want floating. And then it can tell you about collisions, whether you want them to kind of collide with other items or just the ground, or whether you want no collision at all, which that might be a personal preference. It might depend on your particular build. And then this one is most important. So single movement distance and single rotation distance. These to me, I mean, I'm going to have mine always at 1 because I'm going to want things to be as close, as neat as possible. And you definitely can't do that if you have it at like 90. You're going to find it very hard to place items close to one another if you have like the movement distance, rotation distance, the placement range. So that's going to be how close you can put things. I have mine set at far because this doesn't bother me too much, so that's quite good. And then the rotate together, I haven't used that yet, but I guess maybe that will come in helpful. So again, we have the same sort of thing with the structures as well. The kind of key difference here is that you can enable snapping. Now, when I've been decorating, I've been flipping between having this enabled and switched off. The kind of plus side of the enable snapping is I think it will definitely be more beneficial when it comes to building structures and you just want those walls to kind of clasp together, or fencing, things like that. It will definitely be better. But when you're wanting to kind of free play stuff, it's not always the best thing. You want to have kind of more fluidity to your builds and stuff. And then again, you can just change your placement range if you want to. Everything else is pretty much the same. So that is your advanced settings. That's very important. As you can see, it's now nighttime, so it's taken us a while to get through that. But okay, we're on to the next thing, which is your list. So this is everything that is placed in your homeland. And I think I haven't really got to grips with everything here, like the potential of this. One thing I will say that it is useful for is if you have an item and you've forgotten where you've placed it, you can go on to that item and then you can click on the scene locate button, and then you can kind of go into the house and find it. Excuse my running skills. I don't want to kind of delete anything, but as you can see, there is the bear here and it kind of marks where it is. It is slightly annoying because once you do this, you then do have to go in, find that item and cancel locate. It doesn't automatically remove it for you. So that is a little bit of a downside. It would be nice if it was kind of automatic. As you probably saw, there is a search bar here, which we love. There is also a problem decoration button, which might be useful if you're trying to figure out what is the problem when you're building and you've placed a load of items down and you don't know why it's not letting you save. Then you might be able to go in there and kind of figure out and find it. So it might be helpful from there. I haven't quite got there yet, but fingers crossed it is useful like that. And then obviously you have left control plus S to save. You can also save if you just exit out of the build mode, which is fine. But if you're kind of working through things and you might want to just quickly hit save just in case you have a crash or something like that. I haven't crashed, touch wood, once I've been in the homeland, so fingers crossed it is pretty stable. The most important thing next is this kind of bar down here. So this is basically your inventory. As you can see, there is a hotbar, they're all numbered, which is great. And then at the end, there is this B button, which brings you into the whole kind of inventory and storage place. So there is lots of different tabs here. The first one is your whole kind of catalog. This is pretty much all of the items that are available. As you can see, there is a lot of items available, and you can search this using your keyboard, which is great. And then you can like drag things and kind of put them in your hotbar, and then it just stays there. So if you want to put this all here, you can. Obviously, if you have 0 next to it, that means that you don't have any. You can still have the fun, try experimenting and placing them and playing with them, but you won't be able to save it. You will only be able to save it as a scheme. So bear that in mind. If you're building and decorating, you will not be able to save it if you are using items that you don't own any of, or if you run out of the items, unfortunately. But it is nice that you kind of have the flexibility to be able to decorate with things without actually owning them. And then if you just scroll through, you can see here the presets are here, and then here's your kind of ability stuff here, and then you have your like furniture. They're all quite nicely divided up, which is good. I do think it could be a little bit finicky having to go through all of the different tabs and remembering what's where, but it's not too bad. It could be a little bit better laid out, but it's not all that bad, and I kind of do appreciate that there is some kind of organization here, which is nice. So that's pretty much the whole kind of UI. Obviously, you have the kind of buttons that do appear when you are in this mode, and if you left click, if you're on PC, it will bring you other options. So you can just scroll with your mouse to rotate an item if you want to, and then you can just cancel placement as well. And if you want to delete an item, you can right click. I don't like necessarily that they've got the right click delete button and the right click cancel the same, because then it makes you want to accidentally delete an item perhaps. So maybe I do need to change my keybind. I haven't looked into it, but I do hope that's possible. And you can also copy, so you can copy irrespective if you have the item in your storage or inventory. If you don't have that item, again, it's not going to let you save, so just bear that in mind. Although it gives you the option, you might not have the item, so it's worthwhile checking. So that's pretty much the UI there. Let's get into some other things. The next thing you might be thinking is, well, I need things to decorate with, so how do I get my hands on furniture and construction pieces? Well, you can technically, if you want to, run around, tear down all the items from the pre-existing house that is available, or you could collect all, claim all, and it would return everything into your inventory. However, I don't think that is a good idea right in the beginning, because it may be very tempting, but it is going to be very hard to replace those things. So you might want to just hold fire on that before. You can actually start testing your skills at decorating without having any items at all. You will notice that some items will display in your build mode, even if you don't have the items in your inventory or you haven't crafted them. And this is because you can make schemes. So although it will look like you're decorating fine in build mode, you can place down all the items, you can really go to town, the game won't actually allow you to save it as if it is going to be your real life build. You'll have to then save it as a scheme for later. You can share your schemes with friends, as I said, and you must be on the same server, just reiterating that if you're having issues putting in a scheme from someone else. I will say I did do this. I have had a little bit of an issue with them. They're not perfect at the moment. I had one that was kind of stuck on my builder plot, so I had to try and get rid of it, and this was a little bit finicky, like it ghosted, and then I had to leave, go to Flora Wish, and then return, and then it had gone. So I finally got rid of it because it was kind of conflicting with when I was trying to place down other things. So make sure that you don't have anything like that is conflicting with your save files. The other way to obtain furniture is through recipes, and there's a few different ways to do this currently in the game. So you can do this through the Dreamland store, which is the shop associated with the Dreamland Chronicles, and here you earn Dreamland stones, which you can then trade for furniture. They will give you sort of little kind of accomplishments to achieve, and then in return you get them. These are not recipes, these are actually items, and these come pre-crafted. So if you wanted to, you could just buy all the bears you wanted to and make a bear army. I'm 100% not going to judge you on how you spend your currency. But these items available here are not permanent items, and they will trade out with every update. So we'll see another theme next update, next version. So bear that in mind. If there's something you really want, try and focus on that. The next way is via the Yardling shop, where you speak to Posy, and here you can buy sketches, and as you level up new themes, you'll get to unlock and buy different kind of things associated with them. Most interestingly, at level 7 is where you gain access to the basic landscaping, such as fences, rocks, and foliage. A lot of this is purchased with Astrolite. Again, I have a full video on this. You can trade Astrolite for diamonds. I don't recommend it, and don't be like me who thought they needed all of the recipes and then realized, wow, I have nothing to craft this with. So don't feel like there is a sudden urge, I need to have everything unlocked. You definitely don't, because you're not going to be able to craft them at the moment. And finally, there is the decor catalogue, and this for me was the funnest way they could have given us to unlock things. This allows you to run around the world, take photos of existing furniture, and then you will unlock the sketches. There is a few different versions of these, and you can unlock more of the catalogues by spending Astrolite in the abilities other section. I just think this is really fun. I think they did a really good job with this aspect of it. Does it still take a lot to craft? Yes, but they did a pretty good job. After obtaining your sketches, you can take them to the crafting bench to then make the items. It is worth noting that the resources you will need to craft most of these items are from doing abilities, and if you plan on doing a lot of building and decorating, I would highly recommend you do not sell your flowers, as you are going to need a lot of them for crafting. Honestly, I think they may have just missed the mark here with making it that little bit too expensive. I feel like this is something that maybe they should have thought about and at least give people a little bit of access to some stuff. It feels like this is so time gated very, very heavily. They really need to make it more fun and give people that chance to really express themselves with this, which is what I thought it was going to be. Maybe it's not, but hey, a little bit disappointed on that front. You will notice when you click on an item, it gives you a little bit of information about them, and some of them do craft multiples, which is good. However, I don't really think that you're just going to need 6 walls. You're going to need a lot of walls, so bear that in mind as well. They should have definitely upped this. In my opinion, I don't think that they should have made the walls something that you actually have to craft for. I think all of the housing item, like specifically the construction walls, roofs and everything, I think that should have been something that was for free. But anyway, that's for another video. At present, you can only craft 5 at a time, so remember to come back and collect these, and then you can restart your crafting queue, which is always good. Also, the ability to craft dyes at the workbench, which are again very expensive, so I would kind of use at your own kind of discretion. I crafted some of these before actually seeing how much a dye an item is, and it costs 30 per dyeable colorway, so I really hope they change this as well. But obviously it does give you the option there. I think maybe they'll expand upon this a bit more in the future. This at the moment is just not affordable in its current state, so again, I wouldn't stress too much about the dyeing at the moment. So that's kind of the basics. Next, I just want to give you some tips for when it comes to actually building and decorating. These are definitely at a beginner level. I still haven't unlocked all of the tiers for the ability level, and there is definitely a lot more to learn, but hopefully we will get there soon, and then maybe I'll root back round and give you some more tips as well. I've kind of touched on this area, but in your actual plot, you can remove any items that are already placed down in the buildable space. This will then be put into your inventory. This is really useful for a few reasons, but mainly because the foliage is not unlocked until a significantly later stage. So this means if you pick up some of the foliage, there's bushes, there's trees around, you can pick them up, you can move them, and then use them in your current builds that you want to build and kind of save them there. The base area also has a lot of terrain pieces which can be removed or edited. You definitely do not need all of these items, and in fact they can be a bit of a hindrance to decorating and building, particularly if you want a flat area. If you want to remove these without getting giant odd holes or kind of weird bit sticking out. If you click to edit on one of the pieces, you can actually get a snapshot and move around that piece to get an idea of what it actually looks like before you fully remove them, because sometimes it's quite hard to smooth out the pieces just to make it feel like a natural hill. So I would definitely recommend doing this just so you can get that kind of idea of what it's going to look like before you remove it. I have also seen that some people are selling these terrain pieces to get more astrolite. So if you've found a terraforming area that makes you happy and you have some leftover pieces, I don't see any harm in doing this. And FYI, the terrain pieces sell for a lot. I have spoken a bit here about removing items, but please, just a word of warning, be careful when doing so, as there is not an undo button. I definitely think they should add this in the future, or at least look at adding this in the future, because it is very frustrating when you've done something accidentally and you've not recently saved, so then you kind of have to exit out of your build if it's a lot, or try and fit that item back in the way it was, which can be a little bit tricky. So I do highly recommend you remove stuff with caution and save regularly. There is a hold button, which is great for building fences and repeatedly placing walls and item. This is particularly useful as there is no kind of grid per se, it's all kind of free placement. So doing this makes it easier to make sure things are in a straight line. If you're playing on PC, all you have to do is hold down the left click and then it will give you the fencing option or the item option, and you can just choose which direction you want to go in. It also works with plants, and I was pleasantly surprised with this because it gives them a nice space in between, so then I could add other flowers in between as well. So it does work really well. If something isn't placing, check your collision options in the settings menu. It may be the case that something is interfering. For example, it wasn't allowing me to place a path, and it turned out that I just had to tinker with the settings because I had it set to ground collision only. So be careful with that. If something looks like it should be placeable, the chances are you probably can place it. Just have a look in that settings menu and see what's kind of occurring there. Another thing that I have found quite important when I've been decorating in my interiors is to start with either like your base things such as rugs or curtains first of all, and then add in your furniture items. For rugs particularly, it did feel like they wouldn't let me put them under the item, so you have to put the rug down first and then it will allow you to put things on top of them. I also found this with the curtains. I wanted the desk to be really close to the wall, but without putting the curtain first, I couldn't then go back and add the curtain later. So just bear that in mind. There is a group select function that you do unlock as you level up, but it can just be a little bit finicky and you don't want to have to move all your items around. So just bear that in mind if you have like a base item you know you're going to want to include. And finally, my little piece of advice is start small. I know it's so tempting to think, oh my gosh, there's a new thing, we have to make the most ambitious thing we possibly can, but there's a few reasons why you're not going to be able to do that. Firstly, it's time gated, and learning something new can be hard. I know Infinity Nikki are running a house competition right now, but I really would not put too much pressure on yourself to try and enter this. I would start with some smaller projects and build up. I, for example, started with a little terrace area and then a walkway, just mainly to get to grips with the actual mechanics of the building, because there is a lot to learn with it. And I think if you do stuff like that, you're going to end yourself feeling a little bit burnt out, and it's only just started, and I think there's going to be a lot more fun to be had with this. So don't put too much pressure on yourselves, relax, enjoy it. It's a new feature and it's going to be here for a long time. So there we go, there is your kind of basic guide. I hope this was helpful. If you have any other questions in the comments, feel free to ask. If there's anything else you want to know, I will do my best to help you out. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you again soon. Bye bye.